All right, guys, this is Elusive Collectibles, and welcome to another episode of State of the Hobby. With me today are the usual suspects, Marvelous Pax, Brian from Marvel Cards Up, and joining me today is Crypto from Crypto Collectibles. We have Ed from Kiss My Raz, we have Skids, we got Doom Card, and we have Collection Kings. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good, man. Thank you.
Nice, man. Well, just in case anybody doesn't know some of the new people that are in the video, Kiss My Raz, if you want to introduce yourself and just tell a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ed, and hey, I watched the MCU, and it made me just have a passion to come into the Marvel card community, and the Marvel card community is great. I'm actually sports collector that crossed over, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. And Skids, how about yourself,
thank
man?
you.
If you could, tell
My
us
name's
about
Kids.
yourself.
I hate my first name, so we won't mention my first name. Don't you dare do it, Victor. And I used to collect a lot of Pokemon, and Pokemon became boring. I collect a lot of comics, and now I'm getting into cards.
Nice, man. Appreciate it. And Collection Kings, what about you?
Yeah, my name is Arthur. I've been collecting for over 10 years. If you've bought any Rittenhouse stuff, you've probably dealt with me over the years. And just trying to figure out, the current state of the hobby.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. So I want to open up with the first question for Marvelous here, Marvelous Pax, Victor. If you're a new collector, what are some nostalgic sets that you would start looking into to start building up your collection?
You already know I'm going to say masterpieces, bro. It's original artwork. It's something you can't get with comics, and you can't just find it in other sports parallels or anything like that. It's completely original art and inserts, and you get like some of the best artists in the world like that have drawn like some art for, like, you have Julie Bell, who did Ozzy Osbourne like cover art for the albums before jumping into Marvel. So you have it's something to say about that. And everybody knows that heavy metal album covers are epic art. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing to start getting into those sets. You got Joe Jusko in 92, 93, you've got an assortment of artists. 94, the Hildebrandt Bros. 95, you have also some really spectacular artists. It's hard to find those cards now. So to me, it's masterpieces. For me, that just hits because they were the premium set as a kid I couldn't really afford. So I want to always go back to the stuff when I'm an adult that I couldn't really get. That's nostalgia to me.
That's a great answer, Victor. I appreciate that, dude. Yeah, and I could see Crypto itching in his chair. So, Crypto, you're next, man. What would you recommend?
Man, to go off the masterpiece, from what we just talked about, like that to me is like obviously in the beginning of the card run, those are kind of like OGs, right? They're originals. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of the 94, 95 masterpiece, 96. I mean, if you have the budget, yeah, go for it, man. Buy a couple of 96 masterpiece cards. And out of those, I mean, after that, probably like 92 masterpiece if I had to stick with like, in the 90s. I obviously Joe Jusko's a legend, but it depends on what you're doing, right? Like if you're collecting for PC, if you're collecting a grade flip, like that changes the variable too, like on what set you're gonna pick to, like which set you're gonna pick, because we all know 92 is kind of hard, 94 is kind of hard too. 95 is a little better, so those are my sets: 92, 94, and 95. If I had to stick in the 90s.
Nice. All right, Brian, how about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'd say masterpieces is probably the best entry point for what Vic was saying. It's the best art. It's you've got some of the greatest artists, like Bianchi, Palumbo, Bells, Juskos, and it also hits on a second level too, because if your mindset is just wanting to flip, then you can do that with those. If your mindset is wanting to PC, you can do that with those because they're just incredible. And as you get into the modern masterpieces, it's all numbered. And no other card hobby has that. So it's just another layer of awesome onto that. The other thing though is I like what Sergio was saying. I like the Fleer Ultra X-Men's from the 95s. Those are super underrated. 96 Wolverine. Yeah, those sets are sick. So that's kind of where I would say to kind of start. And they haven't hit yet either. Like the Fleer Ultra sets from the 90s, I mean, people just, it's almost like they didn't exist for a lot of the newcomers. And even the OGs, like they know about them, it's just they're not giving them the respect, you know?
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is that I'm surprised that no one has mentioned yet, but is the 1990 Impel set, right? Like I understand why sports people gravitate towards them. One of the follow-up questions to this for me was, and the reason I want to mention that is, what are some good alternatives to these sets that we're discussing? You know, and I know for a fact, you know, Crypto's huge into those 1990 Impel. He loves the background. He loves the white border. So do I. But, you know, being that they're not really rare unless you're buying them in high grade, like a 10, right, or 9.5s, I would look into the Stutzy promos, right? They have the same look. Or I would look into the 2013, 2015 Fleer Retro, those inserts. Those are crazy. You get, you get now they're rare because now they're an insert. They're not a base card. You got the same card design, and you're adding rarity and autos in some of the cases, depending on which card you want to go with. They have an auto version.
And those are original art too, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Doom?
In regards to nostalgic sets, you know, when I first started collecting, I was really gravitated towards the 76 tops, you know, the really early stuff that you don't really see a lot. You know, which happened to be the first appearances of a lot of characters, right? You have the 66 Donruss, you know, set, but you know, that's like super vintage now. Like those older sets are the ones that, you know, I gravitated towards too. And then finding the Rittenhouse stuff, you know, the Marvel 75th and Marvel Universe 2014. Like the way they do the case toppers, you know, with, you know, we talked about this all the time, the top loader and the sticker on it, like, you know,
whatever, it's different.
Yeah, whatever you gravitate towards to, like whatever aesthetic, you know, like we talked about last time, you just choose your spot and then dive deep into it and figure out, you know, the information, the pack odds and the inserts and all that stuff.
Yeah, and look, I want to go on to the next question, which is, if you're also, again, a new collector, investor, whatever in this case, you know, what are some resources that you would recommend to those people to start doing research on either sets, pack odds, you know, how many cards does, you know, Doom have versus how many cards does Surfer have? Yeah, we'll start with Doom on that.
Yeah, for sure. The main website, NS List, you know, where you can find basically every checklist, almost every checklist from Marvel and even some other non-sport stuff, you know. And as a character collector, trading card database always help because I can go search the character and actually see the images to these, you know, lists that you're looking at. So you can kind of match them and understand what the inserts look like. You know, some are going to have foils, some are going to be matte, some are going to be acetate, see-through. So you want to get familiar and you also want to educate yourself on what they look like before you actually stop dropping money on it because it's going to get expensive.
Nice, I appreciate that. That's a good one. What about Collection Kings? What are some tips you have on where to go research for a new collector?
You know, like Doom mentioned, the database, the Cardboard Connections is another good one. You know, if you're looking for a particular set, you can find, you know, like pack odds, all the character lists, like a full checklist. For newer sets, you could also do EPAC, the Upper Deck EPAC site, because they list you know, pack odds, and you could also go to like the marketplace and just see for yourself how many of the card you're looking for are unlocked and on the site. Yeah, you can search through eBay, Google stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll get the perspective also from Skids and Kiss My Ass here in a second. But Skids, going to you first. You are newer to the hobby. Where did you start? Like before you knew any of these tips, like where did you start looking for cards, or how'd you get into it in general?
One day I was on Instagram and came across the live video of Marvel cards. I got introduced to you, Marvelous Packs, and Crypto all from the same person. And I've bounced ideas and knowledge off of all three of y'all's mind. So I mean, if it wasn't for y'all three, I wouldn't know what the hell I know now.
I appreciate that, man. What about you, Ed? What was your strategy coming in and to learn this hobby?
So I'm a big fan of the MCU movies. So what brought me in was Black Diamond. And there's a breaking Black Diamond. I bought a case of it, and it got sold out in an e-pack after I bought like 3 boxes. So I was fiending. Like, what's the next thing that I can get into? So I was like, I looked on eBay and found PMGs. I was like, they got PMGs, and I bought a few of my favorite characters, Deadpool and Captain America, and then that's when I found y'all. Because I went on Instagram finding like collectors, like, okay, I need to find people so I can figure out where to go next,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that makes sense, dude. Speaking of, you mentioned Deadpool and Captain America as your top characters. We'll start with finish so you can finish off your list. What are your top 5 characters?
So Deadpool's number 1 for me. Because then it's not an MCU movie, but the movies is what brought me in. So Deadpool for a fact, because he's uncensored, which I am too. Outside of this live, I hope I didn't curse. But I like Deadpool, Iron Man, Thor, Spidey, and last but not least, I guess I'm gonna add one X-Men. I'm gonna put Wolverine just for Victor's sake.
Nice. Crypto, what about you, man? What are your top 5 top 5 characters, but also now let's add top 5 characters to spec on.
So top 5 characters for me will be probably Doctor Doom, Silver Surfer, Gambit, Venom, and Magneto. 5 characters to maybe spec on Cable, which I think is probably still pretty affordable. Cyclops, which Cyclops cards are relatively pretty cheap. And we all know X-Men is coming into MCU. Galactus, which some cards are cheaper than others, but relatively still at a pretty fair price. Daredevil, another cheap insert. Cheap character that right now, people I feel like should be buying up right now. And maybe not as affordable, but Psylocke, I would say.
Yeah, dude, that's a great. You got some bangers in there. Let's move to Victor here. What are your top 5 and top 5 to spec on?
Dude, top 5 is pretty much the X-Men, and a lot of them are the ladies. Jean Grey, Storm, Rogue, Kitty Pryde, and Colossus. But to spec on Storm from that list, then you got Moon Knight, then you got to spec on. I really think. What's it? Nar. I mean, also Galactus, and I would say Silver Surfer, just because after the Eternals, it opened my mind to really what the MCU can do cosmically, going forward. And for me, that's a long-term kind of spec. There were some long-term ones I gave, and there were some short-term ones. But the short-term one being Moon Knight. Moon Knight is already through the roof right now. But the long-term being Silver Surfer and Galactus, because to me, that's where the MCU evolves after Kang. So we're talking really long-term. We're talking even after the mutants. So X-Men, any X-Men, you can throw a dart at a board, and you're good to go with the blue or gold team. But
Nice,
I love that question.
Nice. What about you, Brian?
I'm kind of right there with Vic. I mean, I like X-Men as a team, but if I had to split them up, it would probably be Phoenix, Jean, Gambit, uh, Bishop, incredibly underrated, Colossus, and Wolverine. I mean, that's probably out of the X-Men, but I'd have to kind of qualify it too because I am a big Spider-Man fan too. So I'd have to have him up there as well. And to spec on, I think for me, my tops 5 are She-Hulk, Silk, Black Cat, Cyclops, just to Sergio's point. In the past, they've made Cyclops just weak. He's a leader of the X-Men. You know, he's supposed to be really good. And somebody you can't really spec on, but I think is going to just be incredibly overpowered later is going to be Wolverine. You know, because they're going to be probably dropping like a trilogy for him. They're going to nail him even harder than they did Hugh Jackman. And that's just going to set him off into its own like universe, you know?
Yeah, that's nice. What about, dude, you threw in more than 5 in there, by the way, but I appreciate it. That was good. I like the Bishop.
I did 6.
I'm messing with you. I like to mess with Brian, dude. What about you, Doom? What are your top 5 from each?
Top 5, Doom. You know, the stuff I PC, Doom and Spider Woman are up there. I grew up with X-Men cartoons, so it's Gambit, Rogue, and I have to include Magneto. Top 5. For specking, you know, I'm looking at Blade. You know, the nostalgia from the '90s movies. I think Blade gets overlooked, and definitely like Fantastic Four. We know they're gonna have a movie. They're gonna come back. We're not gonna acknowledge the Fox stuff. We're just gonna move that to the side, you know. Yeah, that's what I would think.
Nice. How about you, Arthur? What are your top 5 and your top 5 specs?
My top 5, easy, man. Captain America, always number 1. Winter Soldier, Gambit and Rogue. You know, number 5. It's just like it's a toss up. I'll put Spider-Man as number 5. As far as specs, I'm gonna go with Spider-Verse characters. Scarlet Spider, 2099. Adam Warlock. I think we're gonna see Adam Warlock in the next Guardians movie. They teased him at the end of Guardians 2. Yeah, that's about it. Black Cat. It'll be a shame if we don't see Black Cat in one of the Spidey movies.
That's truth.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Whoever watches this video, man, you guys have to start writing these down and cross-reference which ones are the most popular ones. That's a freebie right there. Skids, how about you, man? Just for you, just give me your top 5 in general. I know number 1 is Thor.
Oh yeah, hands down, Thor's top 1. Thor, Gambit, Rogue, Beast, and I'm gonna have to go with Deadpool.
Okay. So I hear a lot of Gambits. Gambit is like the main one. Yeah,
I'm a diehard Gambit fan.
Gambits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, this leads us perfectly into our next question, which is, what do you guys think is going to have a bigger impact on Marvel Cards values in the future, MCU or comic books? And for this one, I'm going to open up with Ed.
I'm going to tell you what, MCU is the only reason I'm here. And I think that's the only way you're getting newcomers in here to buy anything, you know? Like, that's how you're going to draw people here. And I think that's a no-brainer. Like, I don't even know where the heck you buy comics. There's no specialty comic stores here. You know, like, it's either comics. You guys are into comics, obviously, but I'm into the movies, and my buddies that buy right now, they're the they're the same way. They're movie buffs, and they love the movies, and they get into Black Diamond, Metal, and what's this new one? The White Schwartz. We're all buying. We're all buying right now. So hey, that's my perspective on what's going on right now. But I know y'all have different
Yeah,
opinions.
no, that was good, man. I honestly agree with you 100%. How about you, Crypto?
So I'm a little split in between the two because MCU obviously does its own thing, but I mean you can't deny that the stories are coming from the comics, right? Like I know we saw like a little like teaser about like the Secret Invasion, the Scrolls. That's comic based. That's not like something that's just made up in the MCU. You know what I mean? So I think it's like a 50-50 where even if you could think like, hey, it's MCU stuff, there's going to be storylines, whether it's a small part of the story or a bigger part of it, that's going to come straight from the comics into the movie. So I would say comics.
Nice. All right, Victor, how about you?
MCU, I agree with Ed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The comic world now is completely all about rumors, trailers, casting, who's coming, who's going to be who. Even if it's just the slightest of rumor, it's going to pop a book up like almost 100%, just on spec alone. And if you don't sell it in time, in that time frame, you can lose out, so to me it's gotten crazy. It's completely insane with the MCU. If the MCU wasn't doing what it was doing, comic books and these cards, because comic books wouldn't be doing as good, I think the cards would be even worse off. So yeah, that's my answer. I mean, I just think the MCU is what attracts the new audiences into this hobby, and you're going to continue to see that going forward with the kids. And if we want new generations of kids opening stuff, please make it affordable. And I hope that leads to something else down the line. But yeah, next person.
Yeah. Brian, how about you, man?
No, I totally agree. Everything that Victor just said and Ed, I definitely agree. I think the growth and the newcomers are pretty much all coming from the MCU. But the way I kind of see comics now is almost like the rough draft of what the MCU is actually going to be, right? So they are hand in hand, for the comic, for all the comic heads out there, we get these incredibly thought out storylines, right? But that's more for the comic heads, and the percentage that's growing is probably way smaller than the percentage of the way the actual MCU is growing as far as incoming people watching, So, I mean, yeah, I think they are hand in hand, but hugely the MCU is taking over as far as bringing people in.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I agree with all four of you that answered so far. Doom Collection Kings, do you guys want to add anything, or do you guys pretty much agree with that?
Yeah, I'll add I don't. The shows also play a big part, and even previous shows like we're seeing, the Daredevil Netflix series play into the Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man. So I think having that seasons and where you have 10 episodes a season, or even now the Disney Plus stuff, like 6 episodes and they're like 6 hours long. You get to learn about these characters and minor characters a lot more. They definitely have an influence, and the actors that they're pulling in, they have a following. They're going to bring in people too. So definitely for me is the MCU.
Yeah, I agree. 100% MCU. MCU is inspired by the comics, by the books, but what moves the market are the shows and the movies, even trailers. We saw what it did for Miles, Gwen, 2099, Moon Knight. So yeah, it's the MCU for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, man. You know, and we always have this conversation privately, but I always mention, you know, and crypto doesn't like it, but I always tell people, you know, look at Miles. Miles is overtaking Spider-Man. Why? It's not so much. It's definitely not from the comics, right? I feel it's because, like Victor mentioned, my daughter's 3 years old and she watches the Amazing Spider-Man and Friends, and Miles is in there, Gwen is in there. So that's what they're going to be nostalgic to. You know, we talked about nostalgia earlier, which I think drives most of our collecting. You know, that coupled with probably growing up with not much. You know, that's probably like the best formula to create a hardcore collector. So I do think that the MCU is going to be the biggest factor in what people are going to get into. But the next question I wanted to talk about is I get this from sports people, or even new people. Could be sports, could be Pokemon, whomever. If you have $1,000 budget, right, and PMGs are out of the question, so no PMGs, right, and sticking to the same advice you gave them, which would be your top 5 characters and or top 5 specs, what are 5 other inserts that you would tell them to just, you know, if you could tell them, it's up to you if you want to tell them buy 5 cards worth $200 each of the following, or buy just 1 card. And again, cannot be a PMG. Let's open this up with Doom.
Okay, so $1,000, right? I'm definitely going for Rittenhouse. Diamonds, emeralds, rubies. You get the same numbering system or similar numbering system. Yeah, Rittenhouse overlooked. And when you get it in hand, it's, you know, different quality, at least my perspective.
I knew you were going to say that, Doom card.
Yeah.
I knew it. If I'm going to throw an insert out there, I'm throwing the double impact, the Rogue, because I know my boy Skids would want that, and me and Skids are huge Rogue collectors. So I'd be like, I know he's already going to say that one, so I'm stealing it from him before he could say it. The double impact 1996 masterpiece of Rogue, if I could not have a PMG. And besides, the Rogue PMGs aren't that good so far. So, yeah.
So double impact for you. Got it. All right. How about crypto?
For $1,000, man, I would probably pick a little bit of those character autos, and I would choose, like you mentioned before, like a little bit of spec, and maybe pick like a Cyclops auto, which probably goes for pretty cheap. You know, anything X-Men, I think, coming up, and even Fantastic Four. There's a lot of cards online that you can buy that are autoed, and you know, I see those cards more than 2-3xing in the next like year. You know what I mean? So if you can't buy a PMG and you only had $1,000, I'd probably buy, you know, between 5 and 7 of those auto cards just to get you started. You know, like I think that if you hold on to them for a little bit, I think they'll flip well. I don't think they're going to go down in value. They can only go up like anything else. So that would be my pick, is a couple auto cards.
And what sets for that from? What are you referring to?
From, for example, like the 2013, 2015 retro, I would pick at those, you know?
Yeah, that's a good choice.
2018, you know, X-Men, I would just pick at some of those autos with, again, just characters that aren't that expensive right now. I would just scoop those up right away.
Yeah, that's a good tip. How about you, Arthur? What would you do if you were a new investor, new collector with
$1,000? Honestly, I look at the masterpieces stuff, you know, like the speckles, the canvas galleries, because even today you can still find those for relatively cheap compared to, you know, what PMGs are doing. Of course, the Rittenhouse stuff, that's like criminally underrated. You know, I'm a big advocate of the Rittenhouse stuff. Yeah, and you know, masterpieces autographs, 2018 Bianchi, you know, silver spectrums, numbered out of 10. You can't go wrong with those. And even until today, you can, you know, find characters for $150. So, I mean, if you do your research, if you do it, you know, if you do your digging, you can find some quality, you know, low numbered cards for to fit within that $1,000 multiple cards. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Or that's a good answer, man. The silver spectrums out of 10 are crazily underrated still. Depending on what character you're going to go after, you're get ready to have more than $1,000. But for the most part, yeah, there's still characters that are slept on that you could pick up, under
Yep.
$500 for sure.
Yep.
Brian, man, what's on your mind?
Just to add what Arthur was saying, Rittenhouse is criminally underrated. It's insane how overlooked it is. But I would say if I had $1,000, I'd probably just pick up a 2018 purple set from Masterpieces, the tier 1 through 4. That way you have the whole lineup. It's all numbered out of 199. So, and those sell for about $1,000.
Got it.
You get the tier 4 too in there
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
nice.
You send me that link. I'm messing with you.
Go on eBay, man. There's one on eBay right now.
I'm messing with you. How about you, man?
Yeah, I guess you need someone else. I already answered.
You already did? That's good.
Yeah.
Now that you know with what you've learned so far in the past year almost, what if you had $1,000 and you're it's a fresh start for you? What would you throw that 1,000 into? And by the way, some people said it, some people haven't, but it doesn't have to be a set, or you could just choose one Grail card.
I mean, 4 of y'all know my go-to set as it is. It's the 94 Flare, hands down, and 94 Fleer. No questions asked. I'd get the Power Blast from both of them and call it a day.
Nice. Okay, what about you, Ed? What would you do?
I already did it. I picked up I picked up 4 Wise Schwartz Spidey stamps for $250 a piece, and we're gonna grade them through Mr. Marvelous Packs Victor, and we're gonna roll with that. And it's big money coming, baby.
Yeah. I'm gonna add to what pretty much everybody said. For me, like if I could start off with $1,000 today, non-PMGs, I would look into speckles. I would look into kaleidoscopes. I would look into gold galleries. I definitely would look into Rittenhouse, whether it's a ruby, diamond, or an emerald. To be honest with you, like we mentioned some of these things to you guys, but at the end of the day, it's really what you could find, because at this point, it's not, you don't have the luxury to be picky. Maybe if you were here a year to 2 years ago, you could take your time, you could add something to your watch list, and rest assured, sleep tight when you wake up, most likely still going to be in your watch list. Nowadays, you have something in your watch list and it might disappear by the time you wake up.
Sleep tight.
So exactly. So which leads me to my next question, and this is a good one. This is for me. If they were all numbered at, which they are, right? If these are all numbered out of 99, which one would you pick and why? Same card, same character. So let's just throw out a character that we all agree on for the most part. Let's throw out either Spider-Man, Venom, or we'll go with Venom. No, we haven't talked about Venom too much. And even obviously, even if Venom isn't in some of these inserts, I just still want to know what your perspectives are. So starting with Crypto, again, would you get a PMG red out of 99 for Venom, a Royal Foil out of 99 for Venom, an Emerald Rittenhouse out of 99 for Venom, a Gold Gallery Masterpieces out of 99, or a Speckle out of 99, and why?
Man, that's pretty tough. I mean, I'm gonna say that it kind of depends on the art on the card, right? Like it would be more based off of like what the card looks like. If it was like, in this example, Venom. But if I had to pick one, man, some of those gold galleries are really sick, man. I really love like the gold border, etch around. Like for example, Marvelous has that Daredevil with like the yellow back. Man, that card's beautiful. But if I had to pick one out of 99, I'll probably go with the Masterpiece set and say the gold galleries.
Nice. It's good.
I'm proud of you, Crypto. I'm very proud.
I would have to go with the Rittenhouse on that for the Venom. I like the cards themselves. especially since you have a couple of them that I'm like to die for.
Yeah,
But I mean,
that's a
I'd have to go with the Rittenhouse on that one.
Rittenhouse. Nice. Vic.
Dude, I'm going with what Crypto said. He was right on because for me, it's original art, and also the design is on point, and it's stunning. So yeah, I like that. That always catches my eye. Rittenhouse sometimes would be my second. That would be my second.
Okay, Brian.
I'll go with Rittenhouse number 2 in my second spot for sure. Because
Okay.
some of the Rittenhouse set like art, even though like some stuff is like reused, I just think they did it really well.
Yeah, I'll say number 2, Rittenhouse, 100%. But number 1 will definitely be PMG for me. And the branding of it kind of solidifies its longevity, you know. Whereas, as much as I like the Royal Falls, I think they're super awesome. It was their inaugural year, so they have that also. I'd probably put them third because the art on the Rittenhouse, you know, is far superior. But in my head, I'm looking for something that not only can I have it if I want to keep it, that's awesome, right? But when I ghost out, there's something for my kids that has like a guaranteed return on it if they decide they need something, you know. Whereas, you know, when we're all ghosted, Rittenhouse might still be slept on, right? Or masterpieces might still not get the respect that they should. A PMG is going to get that respect every single day of the week.
Now, just because
excuse me, elusive. Can I ask a question right now?
Absolutely, go ahead.
What is as a new collector? Why is Rittenhouse so popular and faceted throughout the collection?
That's a great question, Ed. Let me tell you why. Honestly, at least from my perspective, and I was lucky enough to find Rittenhouse early on when I was doing my research. You know, Collection Kings could attest to this because he has a ComC store, so he kind of knows the dates of when everybody was picking up what they were picking up. And what drew me into their cards were the fact that the boxes are numbered was the biggest thing for me. Victor knows this very well. I fucking hate the word SSP. I hate trying to figure out, okay, well, based on the pack outs, how many, like, cool, you're going to give me a rough estimate, but I want to know, like, how many there is. So a hard number is the biggest solution to my problem, right? So when I saw Rittenhouse, I love that it was simple. It was just 3 parallels that are numbered as far as the numbering goes. And the artwork stood out. I really like, you know, I don't come from the comic book side. I come from the MCU side as well. So when I'm looking at those cards, even though I'm not a comic head, I love that the back of the card kind of resembles like the cover of a comic. And a lot of people don't see that, but you could see that in the back. And they just stand out as a quality insert. And again, what I wanted to ask even Brian as a follow-up question, because this is the reality of it now. And you know, but we have to finish or let everybody answer. But I will say this to your answer about PMGs. That was a great answer on why you would go with PMGs. But looking at the market now, right? And implementing the prices that are what the reality of the hobby is now, would you still pick the PMG and pay 10x over the other inserts, knowing what you know now in the current state of the market?
I did. For the last...
No, today. Like if you were going online today and buying a Venom PMG out of 99, which is around $6,000, $4,000, somewhere in that range.
Is the question just if I wanted to like turn around and sell it?
The question is, to your point, you made a great point, which was if I would want to pass something down to my children, right?
Yeah, I'd still go PMG. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so we did, who are we missing? I lost my order.
Right, yeah, I can go next. I'm definitely, for me, as mainly a collector, I'm not really, you know, trying to flip stuff. It definitely going to be Masterpiece, the gold. what do you call it? The gold galleries, just because of the design. Like I'm a sucker for the design. So if, my second choice, if we're talking about a Venom and I don't care to keep it, it's PMG just to, flip it and just keep it moving, But as a collector, I'm definitely choosing Masterpiece.
Nice. Victor, did you answer already? You did, right?
I'll go.
You did? Okay, go ahead.
For me, if if they're all the same price, that changes my answer. If if I have to pay $5K for a PMG, or that changes my answer. So, prices as they are today, I'd go with the Rittenhouse. Just you hit it right on the head. Those Universe 2014, Universe Series 2, Emeralds, Rubies, Diamonds, they're beautiful cards with the comic image in the background. The foiling, Rittenhouse does foiling so well. And probably number 2 would be the Speckles. I'd go with the Speckles. Now, if they're all the same price, and if you're asking me to choose one, if you're gonna give me one for free, give me the PMG, obviously. Easy.
Nice. Did I miss anybody on this one? No? Okay. Yeah, and by the way, just like a honorable mention that we didn't throw in, because it's definitely not out of 99, would be the Rittenhouse 75th out of 75 cards with the gold border. And, one of the things that we haven't mentioned about Rittenhouse, Ed, which is, to just put you up on game on the Rittenhouse stuff as well, is it's definitely not as condition sensitive as everything else that was mentioned. The gold galleries are very condition sensitive. The PMGs, everybody knows, we don't have to even discuss those, but there's not a lot of gold galleries graded yet, but you'll see the grades will reflect that they're very condition sensitive. And I think that's the other edge personally for me that Rittenhouse has, is the quality of their stock. Specifically for me, the 2014 Universe. Maybe not so much the 75th. Those are like thinner stock than the 2014. So the 2014 would be the ones I would pick. If I had to buy them at today's prices, if the artwork was different, right? But I'll answer the same question to you guys. So it's Venom, but the artwork is different than the Venom on the current thing. I choose Royal Foil, number 1. And then I would do Rittenhouse, number 2. I think that both of those cards would just appeal to me more so. And third would be PMGs, 100%. Now, with the prices the way they are, that just makes it easier for me. I was in early, just in case anybody doesn't know, I was definitely in early, not only to pick up diamonds from Rittenhouse, I picked up PMGs as well. But for me, there was a certain threshold that I didn't want to cross over, because the reality is that a lot of us, regardless of what people say, they don't know where the peak is for these things yet, being PMGs. And to me, once the Reds crossed the $1,000 threshold, I personally stopped buying. I chose to stop buying. I think there's a lot of things you could go after for under that dollar amount. One of the things we haven't really mentioned, but Ed did do, which is the platinum portraits. That's another, Brian mentioned a crossover from sports that people are going to recognize easily. It's definitely the platinum portraits. Like, those are great inserts. My only pet peeve, as you know, is they're not hard numbered. So they're SSPs. But other than that, that's the one I would go with. One of the next questions that we had is, if you could give me 3 boxes that you would keep sealed today, what would those be? Ed?
That doesn't even apply to me, bro.
No?
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No worries.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. How about you, Crypto?
3 boxes that I will keep sealed. 95 mm. I'd keep that sealed for sure. Man, it's kind of tough because I'm going to kind of stick to the older sets. Maybe like 96 Spider-Man, Flair Ultra Spider-Man. Keep that sealed. Actually, I'll swap it out because we talked about it the other day, but that Tom McFarlane set, that's been kind of going up in value a little bit. Tom McFarlane, I think, is a pretty legendary Spider-Man artist. The whole spaghetti web thing and everything. I mean, I'm a big Tom McFarlane Spider-Man guy. And to keep sealed, I'll give you something new. 2019 Flare. They're pretty cheap. You can probably get it for like $250. They have a lot of different stuff in there, man. Some of the inserts are kind of loopy, like the totems. I'm not a big fan of, but they got stained glass. They got autos. They got a little bit of everything in there, man. So for a cheap box, I would say 2019 Flare.
Yeah, that's a great one, man. Doom.
Yeah. I have to agree with Sergio on that 19 Flare.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the stock on that. Like it has some, and you get buybacks and you get what Flariums. Remember that 30, like stuff like that. 2018 Bianchi is one I would keep sealed. Just probably my favorite masterpiece set, just to have it, And it would probably be any masterpiece set that I can find, that's available, because a lot of this stuff is not attainable right now. So
yeah.
So I gotta say something, because I think this needs to be said. If I won the lottery, I'd say, hey, open whatever you want, but keeping sealed, you can't really get a lot of the stuff that you shouldn't even open in the first place. But if you're getting stuff going forward, I'm gonna be real. Keep the Spider-Man metal sealed. I know this is gonna be the unpopular thing to say to people, and they're gonna hate me, but keep it sealed. There's really no point. What I've learned from X-Men Metal is that all the good hits are actually in E-Pack. You're going to hit higher odds of hitting good stuff in a single packs from E-Pack than you ever will from the sealed stuff. The sealed stuff will appreciate in rarity over the next year when it sells out in E-Pack, and you'll have, thousands of bucks. So if you're going to invest on sealed, do it now with Weiss Schwartz. Get in cheap. Do it now with the Spider-Man. I would go with that question, because obviously the grails right now, if you're going to buy it, you're rich, and you're probably going to open it because, you don't really have much to lose if you can spend that kind of money on something that crazy. So I'm going to just give the straight up, I want to do real talk, guys. In the hobby, it's all about ripping packs and all this and that. No. Make some smart investment decisions, because I'm getting priced out of Marvel and it's getting expensive. So I'm going to buy some sealed stuff and keep it sealed. And maybe I'll buy some packs on E-Pack and try and hit, because I told Doom Card, new people, new accounts, hit on E-Pack. And he hit on E-Pack without even having to open a box. So, I mean, like, hey, it's hard and it's not the popular answer, because a lot of people in this hobby are addicts and they want to rip shit. So I'm done. I ranted.
No, you're good, man. Brian, there, go ahead.
All right. So I don't like to keep anything sealed.
This is especially hard for you.
I believe what's in those packs need to be shown. All right. That's just what I believe. Okay. But if I was forced to do it, I'd have to go number one, Spider-Man Archives. I would keep that sealed. 9,000 box run. I mean, you pretty much can't find a sealed one anymore. They're all opened and then sold that way. They don't brick. Wonderful. Keep them sealed for 20 more years. You're still good. Second, I'd have to do Retro 13. Only because even though everybody knows there's nothing left to hit in those, it's still going to give you a good return, right? And then the third one is probably going to be 90 MU. Just because that's what the majority of people gravitated towards. So 25, 30 years from now, it's going to get you out of a lot of sticky situations if something happens.
Yeah.
Everybody will be familiar. All the grandpas are going to be like, I remember that shit.
Yeah. Nice. Doom.
Yeah, no, I already went.
You already went? Man, I'm slipping today. How about you, Arthur?
2013, 2015 retro. Now, if I had to, buy it at the current prices, then that's a no-go. But if I had to buy boxes, current prices to keep sealed, yeah, I'd go with the Rittenhouse stuff. Again, criminally underrated, underpriced. Numbered boxes. You're guaranteed a sketch card in the box. You're guaranteed a numbered card in the box. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-lose. Any of the Rittenhouse boxes,
And they're numbered.
Spidey
They're numbered
archives,
boxes.
X-Men archives, Fantastic Four archives, Marvel Greatest Heroes, Marvel Universe, both series, Marvel 75th Anniversary. There's the numbering's on the box, so
there's no guesswork.
Yeah, the box is serial numbered. That's unique. Black Diamond. Yeah, the other stuff has gone nuclear already, like Vibranium, Marvel Gems, FUSM. You can't find those. If you find them, you're gonna be paying top dollar. So I would go with the Rittenhouse stuff.
Yeah, for me, I'm being honest. Taking today's prices into consideration, I would do 96. I've always wanted to get a box of 96 mm to keep it sealed. I love the artwork in the outside of the box. It obviously has one of my top 3 artworks from Surfer, the double impact. But I would also, honestly, I would go after 1992 tins. I wouldn't go with the boxes because you have a higher likelihood of bricking. But the artwork on those, which is the inaugural Masterpieces set, right, 1992. The artwork is a perfect blend for me between comic and like realism. That's what got me, shout out to Turkey Birdies. I also got into Marvel via Instagram. I was like looking up Silver Surfer cards, and I just put Silver Surfer hashtag, and his double impact, the Spectra, Battle Spectra came up for Turkey Birdies, BGS 95 that he had graded like 3-4 years from the time I was viewing it. So when I saw that artwork, I was like, man, I got hooked. And which leads me to my next question, which is, what are some mistakes you made early on? And I'll open that up real quick because it has to do with my Battle Spectras. I went a little bit too crazy on those. I was new. I was researching the hobby. I was trying to find out pack odds. And what was interesting to me, I didn't even know about the tins, which is the catch, right? I only knew about the boxes. So when I would look up box breaking videos, I noticed that people weren't even pulling all 5 Spectras. Like either they would get doubles of the Thing versus the Hulk or doubles of Captain America and Red Skull. And then they would usually get one of the Spidey versus Venom and maybe one of the Surfers versus Thanos. But yeah, so that's the biggest mistake I made is not doing enough research to see what they go for, and then I also didn't know the print run of those boxes, right? So that was the most amateur thing I could have done, and I did it, but I learned from it, so that for sure that was my number 1 mistake. My number 2 mistake was not picking up doubles of Grail cards early on. So a lot of people, one of the biggest tips I could give anybody new to the hobby is you're gonna come to a crossroads where you find out quickly that for some of these people, money is not an object. It's not the issue. Like if you want to do a trade with someone, they don't care if you have money, especially if they're in a position of being well off or they're fine financially. So what you're gonna find is they're looking for rare stuff, just like you are. So if you have something, like one that comes to mind that I should have done doubles of that I had opportunities, right? So we're going to talk about all our L's. I never picked up a second or a dupe of the double impact Surfer. I wish I would have picked up a double of that card. I saw them all the time at $400 to $500. Again, I didn't know enough info to know that I should have picked up a second one. I love the artwork. Everybody here knows why those are nice. But yeah, that was my biggest 2 mistakes is not doing enough research on the print run of these things, and then second would be the fact that I didn't pick up doubles of Grail cards to use them as trade bait down the line to get me things that I have yet to acquire. So yeah, we'll share. Victor, how about what are some of the mistakes you made early on?
Well, like you said earlier, breaking. So that's pretty much what that means is for new people into Marvel cards, there's a lot of 90s sets where weight was put on the boxes, and the pressure and time of having all that weight and movement around, or whether the box was left in the sun or whatever, it causes the cards to stick and get hard. So I would buy all these packs. Obviously I'm Marvelous packs, so I'd buy packs all the time off eBay really cheap, and I didn't do the research of what sets brick. And bricking is when they stick, and when you're peeling the cards, it leaves that residue on there, and it's basically ruins the card and ruins the whole pack. So there's supposedly ways you can remedy it or prevent it, but it's really a roll of the dice when you go into sealed stuff. So my biggest probably 2 mistakes were buying too much sealed stuff instead of going in on just some of the inserts and art that I wanted just to collect as PC, and then being very careful and doing my research of what I was going to be able to grade from pack pull. So yeah, you also got to be wary of the condition they put their boxes in when they advertise them. If you see that it looks like someone sat on them, it's probably a bad sign of you want to stay away from that. And that's why buying single packs or loose packs was such a risk, because you didn't know what kind of boxes they were coming from. But that I'll just put that as, I'm sure the guys have a bunch of other mistakes to avoid. So definitely do your research on which packs and years and sets break.
Skids, man. I really, being new to the hobby, what are some of the things that come to mind right off the bat that you wish you would have done differently starting off?
I wish I would have looked into it a little bit more instead of just diving in full force. My first couple months, I dropped quite a bit of money on packs that, yeah, maybe they might be worth it, but not as much as I paid for them. Yeah, I mean, it's a hit and miss.
So you definitely would go after singles as opposed to, breaking packs or joining box breaks, I think is what you're saying, right?
Well, no, I mean, you could still do box breaks and buy packs, but just don't spend as much going into it when you're first starting out until you know what you're actually looking for.
No, that's a good tip. How about you, Ed? Same thing. You being newer to the hobby.
Okay. I'm gonna give you this total opposite. I was buying heavy on the PMGs, and I found Ian, metal cards, whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna gain some friends. Let's go. I talked to a lot of people in the chat room. Now I said, hey, just give me the whole box. Bro, I hit one of the top cards, the Wolverine, and that's how I met everybody. Hey, it was a good thing. Hey, you take a chance, you freaking buy a box, and you hit a good card, and everybody loves you. And it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of fake love you get, but there's a lot of real love around that. And I found that right here at all 7 of you, whatever. Even if I don't even know you, Collection Kings, I love you too, bro. Hey, this all happened because of one box break, and if I didn't hit on that one box break, I wouldn't be here. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this by myself, like with my 4 PMGs. But this is it's a cool community, man. Everybody see, like this whole panel is willing to tell everybody what the next move is. It's great. Where are you gonna get this in the sports community? Never.
Yeah, that's a solid point. And then to give people context into his answer, what he's referring to in both Skids and him, which is I think that's an awesome example of how it's like yin and yang. You can have the same experience but different outcomes, and it changes your perspective on how you move forward, right? Both joined box breaks, but had different results. You know, Skids, was buying '90s packs, and he definitely pulled a couple holograms and chase cards, but nothing crazy, as far as value dollar amount. And then Kiss My Raz joined a break and pulled an SSP Geo Wolverine, which is one out of like 576 packs or thereabouts. And as you could see by his
1,500
face,
packs.
oh, thank you,
1,500.
correct. Yeah, I don't know too much about 2020 metal, my bad. 1,500 packs. I'm just and that changed everything. You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, it's crazy. So those are the two newest comers. Doom, what about you, man? What would you have changed?
For me, character collecting, just chasing every single card I could find doing. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of those cards are not gonna be cards that I grade or I keep on my gallery wherever I place them. At the end of the day, just focusing on the ones that are special to me, especially the ones that designs attract me the most. Not spending all your money on every single card for a character.
Yeah. And on a side note, I'd also say too what Doom is saying. I fell for some of that as well, and I think we could both blame Norin, right? Because we saw how deep his collection was with the Surfer, and honestly, we didn't understand where we were at in the market and how hard some of these pieces were to pick up. So I fell for some of the same mistakes, which I was starting to pick up as many, not only as many, but as many different Silver Surfer cards I could come across. And then I noticed, man, you know what? I don't really like the art on some of these, so why am I buying them?
Yeah.
So again, just summarize everything we've been saying, but let's move on to Brian.
First, I'd have to say I didn't put enough commitment into finding something like this, right? Finding peers, going in, actually talking to people, right? What I like is that sometimes I'll wake up and I'll have like 5 or 6 DMs from people I don't even know. And they're asking just normal questions, right? It's not like the normal, like, hey, what do you value this at, right? It's like good questions. And I wish I would have done that when I first came in, just reached out to people, not felt like, it wasn't cool to make new friends and crap like that. And that's what I love about our community, basically. It's just we can all talk to each other, we can all make fun of each other, and we can all learn from each other. And that's a priceless commodity, basically. Because like in sport, you barely get that. I mean, you've got to like really hook people up, and then they'll give you they'll scratch your back a little bit. So it's kind of hard. It's hard to do that stuff. That's probably what I would say the first L is. The second L is just not buying more stuff that was in my gut.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what PMGs were, and I was like, oh, that's dope. Let me go get this other stuff first. That'll be there. That'll still be there tomorrow. Tomorrow was not yesterday, and those things are gone. That's probably the second L. If you see something you like, especially if it's hard numbered, get it.
Yeah.
And back then things were like $100, $50, $20.
Follow your gut.
Yeah, follow your gut. Get what you like, right? I was getting a lot of stuff that I didn't even really like because I didn't have that education and forethought of what I really liked, right? Like I know I like X-Men, right? But there's a lot of shitty X-Men out there, right? And you get stuck holding those bags. Hopefully one day those bags are nice, but I would have much rather had those purple and green PMGs that I was passing up for, $500, $600. I'd be flying away on my spaceship right now.
than some heavy ass bags, you know.
Yeah.
Holding them, and you're stuck at the airport still.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know, go ahead.
What were you saying?
I was just gonna say to your point. I think another thing that we don't touch on very much, but artwork is probably one of the other main driving forces for collecting with Marvel, behind rarity. I would say rarity is probably primary, and then artwork, right? And when it comes to artwork, you know, and I hate to say this, but I don't know how else to articulate it, but you start developing a palette, right? Like you come in with a certain taste. You know, you go into Baskin Robbins, and if I want to play it safe, or any store, right, any ice cream shop parlor, if I want to play it safe, I'm going to go with chocolate chip cookie dough for me, right? Because I know that I kind of know what to expect. There'll be subtle differences, but for the most part, it is what it is. And then, you know, you come to find out, you try other flavors, and maybe I like cheesecake on my stuff now. You know, so I think that comes with part of the journey of collecting, and especially with Marvel is, you know, you have certain characters, but you know, a good example of that as well is Iron Man. Iron Man is crazy in the MCU. Iron Man, I would say, is even above with certain collectors or certain fans of the MCU, probably bigger than Spider-Man, to be honest with you, right? Some people just hold Robert Downey Jr. in that pedestal. But if you notice with the cards, there's not a lot of great Iron Man cards. I could tell you the top 5 Iron Man cards there is because of that. So sometimes you might come in as a fan favorite of a certain character, but then you come to find out that there's not many of your character's cards. So that's where, you know, going back to everybody's point is research as much as you can. And let's jump to crypto, and then we'll jump into Collection Kings to sum it up for us.
So I would say for sure, like the biggest mistake I made is kind of to piggyback off of Brian here, is focusing on like my train of thought in the moment was like kind of the same as Brian. Oh, this stuff will be here. Let me buy some of this base stuff, like some of the older stuff. And I thought that was a move, because in my mind I'm like, oh, like I'll grade and I'll flip. But then when you see what the market's doing, like for me in my position, it's to continue to buy. Don't stop buying. You know what I mean? Like with the way the market moves and the way things sell, especially now, I was like, oh, I'm gonna grade it and flip it. You know, I was gonna go SGC, grade and flip. And when it's not that it's not gonna ever happen, it was just like I'd rather continue to buy cards, and instead of focusing on the important stuff, like the hard number stuff, the chase, the inserts, auto, stuff like that, I bought too much base. You know, I will say that in some ends I'm pretty lucky, because some of the cards that I did pick out are pretty solid, that I think I can hit a 9 or better. But some of the other stuff is just, you know, at this point it's just paperweight. So I think that was my biggest mistake for sure, is you know, focusing on like trying to buy like, oh, let me buy like the 92 stuff, the 94 stuff, when I should have been buying, you know, Rittenhouse. I should have been buying Spider-Man Archives and some of these other ones. And also, like for me, you know, Doom did the same process as me, and the only difference is between me and Doom is that even though, like, yes, like maybe we spend a little bit too much money on like some of the Doctor Doom stuff, like random like cards. Regardless of what the condition is, if it's something that you don't see every day, I'm gonna hold on to it. Like even if it doesn't have value for someone else, it has value for me. And number 2. If I had to say a number 2, especially seeing with like the way that EPAC went down, and and pack rips and all that stuff, don't spend your money. So like you can get lucky like Ed, and you can hit something big, 100%. Like that can happen. You know, like it's just the chances are pretty slim. With the way I saw it go down, I mean, you know, you saw what happened after EPAC. All the cards dumped, and everything was at a low. You know, so you can almost kind of say you can maybe say that that's what's going to happen moving forward with other EPAC stuff. Just buy the insert. Just buy the card you want instead of paying, you know, $30-$40 for something that, you know, when you hit it, you're like, damn, like that was a waste of money, you know?
Nice. How about you, Arthur?
So my 2 biggest mistakes are connected, right? So my biggest mistake is selling too early. You know, I break a lot, so I can't keep everything, but it's hard to pick and choose, you know, what to keep and what to get rid of. to recoup some money. But in general, just selling too early. And it's connected. You know, my second biggest mistake is discovering EPAC, because if you have a gambling personality, if you're a gambler, if you go down that rabbit hole, you know, that's going to be tough, because, you know, you have to navigate that site with caution. You can get lost in there, and, you know, you won't even know what's waiting for you. It's just a couple clicks of a mouse, you know, and you can be in a big hole. So yeah, you can get lucky with a box or two, but, you know, it's the rule. The longer you play, you're gonna lose. So, you know, my advice to anybody, like, you know, just starting out and discovering EPAC is, yeah, navigate that site with caution. You know, if you want to break a box, but if you don't, you know, if you're not lucky like Ed, you know, don't keep chasing that hit, because, you know, eventually that hit's going to cost you 10 times what you could have bought it on the secondary.
Yeah, so real. That talk is so real, and I laughed about it a little bit, but it's like, gambling is so dangerous and so misunderstood in this hobby, and it's a big part of this hobby. Like, if you can't have this hobby without the gambler and the gambling aspect of it. It's like part of the healthy ecosystem, and it's scary. So I just say, like, yeah, if you need help, there are places you can get help for gambling, and we're not experts or anything. Some of us are gamblers ourselves. So
I think we're all gamblers here, man.
And
Yeah,
don't ever come to me and ask if you could eat back. Just don't ever ask me if
Brian
you should
will
or
always
not.
say yes. He will always be like, let's do it. Let's go.
I mean, look, if you go to a card shop, you know, you'll buy a box, you'll break it there, you'll bring it home, you'll break it, you hit, you don't. You know, you can't just go to a card shop and say, give me 100 boxes of this product. It's just not going to happen. But you're just sitting at home. It's convenient, right? You're just sitting at home. It's a couple clicks, and you can break box after box, like dozen, turns into hundreds. And, you know, you just got to be careful going down that rabbit hole. It can be a gift and a curse. So, you know.
The last thing I would say, and then we'll move on to like some closing thoughts. But it's this: we always say buy what you like, right? We always repeat that. But one of the newest things that, you know, I've been able to figure, you know, just say it in a better way is, if you wouldn't buy that card twice, and the second time for a higher dollar amount than you bought the first one, then you don't really love the card. If you're willing to buy it twice, then that should be a hint of what you should invest in, because most likely if you bought it twice, someone will buy it once from you. And if you don't, you know, to new collectors, go to Instagram and look at the biggest people in our hobby. You know, I'm not going to name any names, but all those people have multiples of cards of the one card because they liked it or they believed in it for whatever reason. There's a lot of people. So don't believe so much about what people say. You know, actions speak louder than words. Go to their Instagram and see what they're holding. Right,
dude. Philosopher elusive here, speaking truth. Dr. Phil, man.
Yeah. Well, it's just the truth, man. A lot of people don't want to say that, but, you know, and then even people that don't show their collections, I've been privy to maybe some behind the scenes where they won't show you what they have on social media, but that's only because they don't want to deter you from chasing what they're holding, and they're holding multiples. You know, I know of someone, without saying anything crazy, I know of someone that has a huge card that's numbered to 5, and they're holding 3 out of the 5. Put it that way. So yeah, and, you know, and this person is known in the hobby, but he doesn't show his stuff.
So let's just make a pact. All 8 of us, we're gonna get all the Spider-Man Platinum portraits. We're gonna get them all.
No, that's Ed. Ed is going for all of them.
We already deciphered this. We're all going for them. Me, you, Elusive, and Crypto. We already made a pact.
Brian's money in my account to buy that.
Brian's gonna be hitting EPAC trying to pull him like crazy.
They're all gonna be on EPAC.
Brian's gonna be a fucking millionaire because we're fucking paying him $5,000 a piece. I mean,
Hey,
freaking 5.
You know, let me add
Go on.
something real quick.
All right, go ahead, man.
That not a lot of people really, not a lot of newcomers understand about EPAC, right? When a physical box drops, right, that price goes up. So, for example, X-Men Metal right now is about four something a box, 430 a box ish. EPAC's 250. You sacrifice low base cards, right? You can get those base cards. You can get 100 low base for probably $25 physical, you know? So why not just go the EPAC route, save that money, and use that leftover money to get a single hit that's like 100 or $150, and you get a box on EPAC, right? So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because not a lot of people understand, like, the prices on EPAC are very cheap considering what the physical prices are, and you sacrifice very little.
You gotta find every strategy
That's
you can to save money, you know, in this hobby, and to find a way to get what you still want. So that's a great tip. Great
that's
advice.
a good one. Yeah, one of the last things I wanted to ask everybody, and please remember, this is only for your PC. Does not include your cards that you're already intending to flip. When is it okay for you to sell your PC? Like when, and that's going to be different for everybody, right? So I'll open it with this to give you guys some context. For me, whatever my PC cards are, the only way I'm moving anybody at any of those PC cards is either A, I'm after another card. So in other words, I would know exactly what to put that money into right off the bat. I'm not going to sell something just to hold cash, right? Yeah, I would put it into a bigger piece, or break it up into smaller other cards that I believe in, as an example. But if I don't need the money to buy another card, and this is what I want to ask everybody, because I know that everybody has their number. But how do you guys determine that number? For me, again, if I'm not looking to buy another piece, unless I need to do something in regards to my family, in regards to my home, then there's no need to sell. Now, the only thing I would add to that, right, is if the wife wants to go on vacation and the experience is going to outweigh what the card represents for me, then I'll sell the card. But that's my answer. So I want to start off with Collection Kings on this one. When is it okay to sell your PC?
It's different for everyone. For me, it'll be, when I just can't justify the number in my mind. And for me, it doesn't matter. I don't have to take that money and put it into another card, or, like God forbid, a life tragedy that you need to come up on a grip of money, if I can't justify the number, whether it be 10x or 100x, if in my mind I think, that's just crazy. That's crazy. If you're willing to pay it, here you go. Yeah.
Victor.
But the cards the cards in my PC that are keepers, like forever keepers, they're not cards. They're not very valuable cards. They're my sketch cards. Those are the sketch cards don't get no love. So I'll be buried with those cards.
Yeah.
But one day they may get love. So,
And if
like
I can't justify that number, they're gone.
Yeah. There you go. So I'm with you. I agree with Collection Kings. When I can't justify, like, if I'm gonna be able to 5x on a card, even if it's a PC card, if it's something that I need, I'll do it, But if I don't need to, I want to hold it as long as I can and try and even have it appreciate more, because these things age like fine wine. They're beautiful. They're art, like they're not going to get any newer as the years go by, or any more like, oh, I can go find a box here easily, So to me, it's like, the more longer I can hold them, the better. That's more my rule of thumb with my PC, because I would want my kids to be able to enjoy that like splendor of seeing that card move and us being able to open like whatever they want to open. Who knows what they're into then? And if it's not even cards, it could be experiences, like you were talking about, elusive. So, good question. But for me, it's like collection. I agree with collection games. It's like once it doesn't,
Makes
once
sense.
it's like, hey, I don't really have the same interest anymore. I can move into something better or have more fun. I'll do it. And that's what I've noticed with everyone in the hobby. For them to say, oh, I'm going to keep this forever. Come on now. Everyone has a price.
Doom card. Thanks, man.
Yeah, for me, and I moved my PMGs like before even the spike. Like they weren't my grails. It's whenever I lose interest, or I actually, your personal collection changes, your taste changes, and you know what you want at the end of the day. Then if I can fund that with a card that I don't care about, I'll move and I'll sell it. Outside of that, if you need money for family reasons, then you do it right away. But yeah, just to fund another collectible that you're after, that's when I would sell.
Another passion. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Crypto.
So for me to sell like my PC stuff, I mean, obviously like some kind of like, family tragedy or just tragedy, like, life tragedy, something happens. But to be honest, like for me, like the PC stuff, I mean, I'm on the same wave as Brian, man. Like I want to pass this on to my kid, and hopefully he can do something bigger than I can do with it now. So unless I like really truly need it and I'm in a bind, I wouldn't really sell my PC, man. This for me is like a pass on, like this is like, like almost like an inheritance. And obviously, like I've spoken to you about this before, Elusive, like when he's old enough to understand like what this like truly means, I pass it on to him when he comes of age, because the last thing I want is to pass on something to him and he freaking flips it for a pair of Jordans nowadays. You know what I mean? Like that would, like, it would kill me. You know what I mean? It would kill me if he flipped it for something that isn't really worth it, So I'm a hodler, man. I'm a hodler in crypto. Obviously right now I'm hodling VV. And for the PC stuff, I'm gonna hold on to that because it's not it like it may seem like it's for me, but it's not for me. Like this is something that's gonna get passed on as hopefully an inheritance to him, and whatever he does with it once he understands the game, then maybe he makes a big move later on in life with some cards that we bought in 2020, man.
Nice. Brian.
No, there's not much I could add, honestly. Like everybody kind of touched on all the reasons you would want to sell it. From something happening where you got to get out of a situation, or if you could, improve your life at home in some type of aspect, or even just being thrown silly money, right? Like if somebody threw out like 200x, on a big card, you're equally as dumb for turning it down as not accepting. So I mean, it's, to me, a big part of it is what Sergio was saying. It's just I didn't have anything handed down to me, right? And I want my kids to also have that. They have a very large sports collection that's already being passed that I don't sell at all. And it would be cool to have this in there also, but at the same time, you got to keep the circle going. So I do grade sets. I want to give them sets of like a specific gem, and whatever I don't get in that gem number, then I sell that off and use that money to try to grade more so I can get those sets done, and then by the time I finish, I'll be 500 years old and they'll be chilling, and then they can make that decision. They get a new car or an engagement ring for their wife or down payment on a house, things that can like really affect their life, and that's honestly what the whole thing is. Like, you think coin collectors hold on to these like coins from 1601 and it's just passed down from generations? That's like movie shit. They're getting that stuff and they're selling it when the time is right to improve their overall life. You know, they're not buying Ferraris and shit like flippers do, where they just burn the money. They're actually looking to improve their family to make things better. You know, and I think that's an important distinction between a collector who sells and then somebody who just straight flips. Right?
Yeah,
Like, if you're straight flipping, you're just buying stupid shit and you're flaunting it and you're clubbing and you're like doing dumb stuff. When you're a collector who sells, there's more of like a philosophy in it, and you're using it to either level up or improve your overall situation in your life.
100%. That was a great one, man. We could almost close with that, but it looks like Ed really wants to say something because you called him a flipper.
No, I was like, bro, I'm a flipper, kinda, but it only happened because the big 2020 boom, and I held shit forever in my collection. Crap
So you
from
are a
my
collector.
collection. Sorry.
No, you could cuss
Oh,
here. You can say fucking, this ain't Nickelodeon, bro. Come on.
My fault. But yeah, I wrote a couple bullet points down. I bought a $700 Lamar cracked ice, sold it for $10K, bought a Kevin Durant for $4,500, which is now worth 15 to 20,000 bucks, right? So that's only part of that whole deal.
But that's leveling up. You're not really flipping.
Exactly.
You're leveling up.
But it's not being a pessimistic flipper, like
Right.
downing collectors, you know what I'm saying? Like it's looking forward to the next thing.
Mhm.
And I just don't think there's that much going on right now. It's everybody wants the information given to them, which nobody's willing to go find it out for themselves. And I'll end with that.
Skins, man. How about you, dude?
I only get rid of it if I absolutely have to. I have no desire to get rid of any of it. If you don't believe me, y'all can ask my wife. She tries to convince me to get rid of this stuff that I don't really care about. Like I have,
but once she sees,
I have
once she sees you
1,000
making
Pokemon
money,
cards, and I'm just sitting on them.
Dude, Skids, once she sees you raking in some of that Marvel dough, she's gonna change that attitude around.
That's why none of my stuff has been graded yet. Not even any of my comics.
I appreciate everybody here joining me, man. This was fun. I just wanted to get everybody's perspective on some of these questions, and unless anybody has a closing statement, but I think Brian fucking just hit the layup. Anybody else want to join in on saying anything, or are we good?
No, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This is awesome.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, man. That was dope.
Yeah, it was, man. It was cool,
Nice
man.
chatting, guys.
Yeah, thank you, guys, man. You guys have a great
Good
night.
conversations, man.
Yeah, of course.
Peace
Have a
and
good night,
love.
guys.